Hey gardening friends, ready to grow healthier plants, bigger harvests, and smarter gardens? Let's get started.
What if that old jar of honey sitting in the back of your kitchen cabinet, the one that turned hard and grainy months ago, could actually transform a struggling strawberry bed into one loaded with fruit? And here is the craziest part. Most gardeners are feeding their strawberry plants the completely wrong way, and they have no idea they are doing it. Welcome to The Smart Gardener. If you are new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell right now. Every single week, this channel delivers tested, practical growing methods you can put to work in your own backyard. Not theory, not guesswork, real results. Now, strawberries look easy to grow. They spread on their own, they tolerate a little neglect, and they seem to just handle themselves. But anyone who has grown them for more than one season knows there is a massive gap between a plant that merely survives and one that explodes with fruit. By the end of this video, you will understand the soil science behind a simple method that closes that gap. And you will learn one critical first step that almost every other channel completely skips. So let us start with something most people never think about. What is actually happening underground beneath your strawberry plants? In heavier soils like clay loam, research shows that roughly 90% of a strawberry plant's roots are packed into just the top 6 inches of soil. That is an incredibly thin layer carrying almost the entire burden of keeping that plant alive and productive. And here is what makes it even more fascinating. Strawberry plants actually grow two completely different types of roots. The first type is the thick structural roots that anchor the plant and last for years. But the second type, the ones that actually absorb water and nutrients, are tiny feeder roots, so fine you can barely see them. These delicate roots only survive for a few days to a few weeks before they die off and get replaced by new ones. Think of them as a constantly rotating crew of workers living right at the soil surface. When that surface layer is healthy, those feeder roots thrive. When it is compacted or biologically dead, the plant starves no matter how much fertilizer you pour on top. And that is exactly where most gardening advice falls short. Everyone talks about adding nitrogen for leaf growth and potassium for fruit quality, and those nutrients absolutely matter. In fact, the strawberry fruit itself accumulates more potassium than every other part of the plant combined. But here is the problem nobody explains. You can have soil loaded with all the right minerals and still end up with weak plants and disappointing harvests simply because the biological delivery system, the living network of microbes that actually carries those nutrients into the root, is not functioning the way it should. And that is exactly where a single capful of honey changes everything. Honey is essentially concentrated plant sugar, mostly glucose and fructose, along with trace enzymes, amino acids, and organic acids. But when you dilute it in water and pour it into the soil around your strawberry plants, it is not feeding the plant directly in any meaningful way. What it is actually doing is feeding the invisible workforce already living in your soil. Beneficial fungi, called mycorrhizal fungi, form a partnership with plant roots. They send out thread-like structures that extend far beyond where the roots themselves can reach, dramatically expanding the area available for absorbing water and minerals. Normally, these fungi receive up to 20% of the sugars the plant produces through photosynthesis as payment for their services. But here is the catch. A young strawberry plant, or one under stress, often does not have enough spare energy to support that fungal network on its own. The honey solution steps in as an outside energy source, giving those fungi and beneficial bacteria the boost they need to multiply and get to work. And here is something most people do not realize. Research has shown that fructose, which is one of the primary sugars in honey, is the most effective activator of phosphatase, the enzyme responsible for unlocking organic phosphorus trapped in your soil. Once that phosphorus is released, the fungal network absorbs it and delivers it straight to the root. On top of that, simple sugars shift the bacterial community in favor of beneficial species that naturally crowd out harmful pathogens. Studies have found that mycorrhizal fungi significantly suppress diseases like verticillium wilt in strawberry plants, and strawberries are actually considered natural trap plants for these beneficial fungi meaning they are already wired to form this partnership the moment conditions allow it. And remember that crystallized jar I mentioned at the beginning? Do not throw it away. Crystallization only changes the physical structure of the sugars inside. It does not destroy them. Dissolve it in warm water and it works just as well, sometimes even better. Here is exactly how to put this together. Take 1 capful of honey, the kind from a standard water or soda bottle, which works out to roughly 1 tablespoon. Dissolve it into about 10 ounces of lukewarm water. The water should be warm enough to fully dissolve the honey, but never hot, because high heat breaks down the delicate enzymes that make this work. Stir it until the mixture looks completely uniform with no separation. Then apply about 1 tablespoon of the diluted solution directly to the base of each plant, right at the soil line, never over the leaves. That amount might sound tiny, and it is meant to be. This is a microbial activator, not a heavy feeding. Apply this every 7 to 10 days. Consistency matters far more than quantity here. The best time is in the morning, right after your normal watering, so the soil is already slightly moist and the solution spreads evenly through the root zone instead of sitting on top. Start as early as possible in spring when new growth first appears, well before flowering begins. If you are growing in containers, stick closer to the 10-day cycle, since container soil shifts balance much faster. One step that is easy to overlook is mulching right after application. A light layer of straw, shredded leaves, or untreated grass clippings holds in the moisture and warmth that beneficial microbes need to stay active near the surface. Without it, that top layer dries out fast in warm weather, and your microbial population never builds up the way you want. Now, one honest tip that most channels will not mention. Diluted honey can attract ants. But at this concentration, the sugar level is very low, and it soaks into the soil quickly. Mulching immediately after application and watering in the morning keeps that risk to a minimum. But before you mix that first batch, there is one step that 90% of gardeners skip entirely, and it can make or break everything we just talked about. Test your soil. Specifically, test the pH. Strawberries need a slightly acidic environment, right between 5.5 and 6.5. If your soil falls outside that range, essential nutrients like phosphorus, iron, and manganese get locked up in the ground where roots simply cannot access them. It does not matter how much honey or fertilizer you add. If the pH is wrong, your plants are working against a wall they cannot break through. The most accurate way to check is to send a sample to your local cooperative extension office. It costs very little, and the results come back with specific recommendations for your exact soil type. Do that every 3 to 5 years, ideally in the fall, so you have time to make corrections before spring planting. And here is one more thing worth knowing. If you really want to give this honey method the best possible foundation, mix about 10 to 20% worm castings into your soil before you start. Research shows that microbial activity in worm castings runs 10 to 20 times higher than in ordinary soil. That means when you add the honey solution on top of that, you are activating a microbial population that is already far more abundant and diverse. Think of it this way. Worm castings build the army, and the honey feeds it. But always remember, honey is an activator, not a replacement for compost, aged manure, or good organic matter. Those remain the long-term foundation of healthy soil. So let us bring it all together. A single capful of honey dissolved in water, applied once a week to the base of your strawberry plants, can quietly transform what is happening beneath the surface of your garden. You are not just feeding a plant. You are feeding an entire underground ecosystem that your strawberry depends on every single day. Try it on just 1 or 2 plants this season and compare them against the rest of your bed. The difference will likely show up well before the first berry turns red. If you have tried something like this in your own garden, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. And if this is your first time here on The Smart Gardener, hit that subscribe button so you do not miss what is coming next week. Until then, happy growing.